Hello, my friend. Welcome back. This is English with Thomas. Wherever you are right now, sitting quietly, walking outside, or resting after a long day, I want you to take a small breath with me. Just one, not to change anything, not to force calm, just to arrive. Today, I want to talk about something that sounds dramatic when we first hear it, but feels very familiar when we look closer. They wanted destruction, and I chose discipline. This is not a story about enemies in the traditional sense. It is not about revenge. It is not about anger exploding. It is a story about pressure, about noise, about expectations, about the subtle, constant forces that try to pull us away from who we are becoming. And it is also a story about choice, quiet choice, repeated choice, the kind of choice you make when no one is watching. I want to walk with you through this idea slowly, not to impress you, not to teach you a lesson, but to share something human, something I have lived, and something I believe you have lived too, in your own way. Let me begin with a small scene. I remember a time in my life when everything felt unstable. Not loud chaos, but a quiet kind of disorder, the kind that happens when you wake up tired, even after sleeping. When your phone is full of messages, but none of them feel meaningful. When people around you have opinions about what you should do, how fast you should move, and who you should become. Everywhere I looked, there was urgency. Hurry. React. Explain yourself. Defend yourself. Prove something. And slowly, without noticing at first, that urgency began to shape my behavior. I spoke faster. I listened less. I felt irritated by small things. I lost patience not only with others, but with myself. Have you ever felt that? If so, try saying this softly, out loud, or in your mind. I felt pulled in many directions. Repeat it slowly. I felt pulled in many directions. This sentence is simple, but honest. And honesty is a form of discipline, too. At that time, some people around me were not kind. They criticized my pace. They questioned my focus. They misunderstood my silence. Some of them wanted a reaction. Some wanted drama. Some wanted me to fail, not because they were evil, but because my calm made them uncomfortable. That is something we do not talk about enough. Sometimes, people want destruction not because they hate you, but because your discipline reminds them of what they are avoiding. And discipline, in this sense, does not mean punishment. It does not mean being strict or cold. It means choosing what you allow into your mind, choosing what you respond to, choosing what you repeat every day. One morning, after a particularly heavy week, I woke up early. The light was soft. The world felt quiet for just a moment, and instead of checking my phone, instead of replaying conversations in my head, I sat at the edge of my bed and asked myself one question. What do I need today to remain intact? Not to win, not to prove anything, just to remain intact. Try saying that sentence, I want to remain intact. Again, slowly. I want to remain intact. That morning, I made a decision, a small one, but small decisions, repeated, become discipline. I decided to move my body before speaking to anyone. I decided to read instead of scrolling. I decided to answer messages later, not immediately. I decided to speak only when my words were clear. No one applauded, no one noticed, and that was the point. Discipline often looks boring from the outside, but inside, it creates space. And space is where language grows. Space is where thought becomes clear. Let me tell you another story. I once had a conversation with someone who wanted a reaction from me. You may recognize this situation. Their words were sharp, Their tone was challenging. They wanted me to defend myself, to explain my choices, to feel smaller. I felt the familiar heat in my chest, that impulse to respond quickly, to say something clever, to protect my image. But instead, I paused, just for a second. And in that pause, I noticed my breath. I said very little. I listened. And when I spoke, my voice was calm. Later, I walked away and felt something unexpected, not weakness, but strength. Real strength is not loud. It is stable. Repeat this sentence with me. Stability is strength. Say it again. Stability is strength. This is important for your English too. When you rush, when you force fluency, when you compare yourself to others, your language becomes tense. But when you choose discipline, slow listening, daily exposure, gentle repetition, your English becomes stable. And stability brings confidence. Sometimes people want you to rush because they are uncomfortable with patience. And patience, like discipline, is a quiet rebellion. I think about this often when I teach. Many learners want quick results. They want perfect pronunciation. They want to speak like a native speaker immediately. And the world encourages this impatience. But I want to tell you something gently. Fluency is not built by pressure. It is built by presence. Say this sentence: fluency grows when I stay present. Slowly, fluency grows when I stay present. When you listen to a story like this, you are not just learning words. You are training your nervous system to stay with language, to not escape, to not judge, to simply be here. That is discipline too. Let me return to the theme they wanted: destruction. Destruction can be loud insults, attacks, rejection, but more often it is subtle. It is distraction. It is constant comparison. It is the voice that says, "You are too slow," or "You are not good enough yet." Discipline is how we respond to that voice, not by fighting it, not by arguing with it, but by choosing a different action. When that voice says, "Give up," discipline says, "Just show up." When that voice says, "React," discipline says, "Wait." When that voice says, "Prove yourself," discipline says, "Build yourself." Try repeating this sentence: I choose my response. Again, I choose my response. This is powerful language. Simple, direct, and deeply human. Over time, my life became quieter, not easier, but clearer. I had routines that grounded me. I had habits that protected my energy. I had boundaries that did not require explanation. And something interesting happened. The same people who once wanted a reaction stopped asking for one. The noise faded. The urgency lost its power. Because discipline does not attack destruction, it outlasts it. Maybe you are listening to this while learning English late at night. Maybe you feel tired. Maybe you feel behind. Maybe someone once laughed at your accent. Maybe someone told you that you started too late. If so, I want you to hear this clearly. Your discipline is not visible to them, but it is shaping you. Every time you listen instead of quitting, every time you repeat a sentence slowly, every time you return, even after a long break, that is not weakness. That is commitment. Say this sentence softly: I am committed to my growth. Again, I am committed to my growth. Sometimes I feel that learning a language is one of the most honest mirrors of life. You cannot rush it. You cannot fake it. You must show up again and again, even when progress feels invisible. And that is why this theme matters. They wanted destruction of focus, of patience, of confidence, and you chose discipline: steady, quiet, persistent. Before we close, I want to leave you with a final image. Imagine a river, not fast, not dramatic, but consistent. It does not argue with rocks. It does not explain itself. It simply keeps moving day after day until even the hardest stone begins to change. You are like that river, and English is not something outside of you. It is something you are learning to carry calmly, steadily, in your own way. When you speak, speak slowly. When you listen, listen fully. When you struggle, stay kind. You are not just learning English. You are learning discipline. And discipline is how you protect what matters. Thank you for staying with me today. And before you turn this off, before you move on to the next sound, the next task, the next responsibility, I want to stay with you a little longer. Not to add more ideas, but to deepen the feeling we are already in. Because discipline is not a moment. It is a relationship with your attention, with your habits, with your inner voice. And relationship, as you know, are not built in one conversation. They are built over time, through consistency, through small returns. I remember another period in my life when discipline felt heavy, not calm, not empowering. Heavy, like something I was forcing myself to carry. I woke up early, followed routines, worked hard, but inside, I felt disconnected. I was doing the right things, but without listening to myself. That is an important distinction. Discipline without awareness becomes control. But discipline with awareness becomes care. Let that sentence settle. Discipline with awareness becomes care. You see, choosing discipline does not mean becoming rigid. It means becoming intentional. It means noticing when you are tired and resting on purpose. It means noticing when you are distracted and gently returning. This is the kind of discipline I want you to practice with English too. Not forcing yourself to study when your mind is exhausted, not judging yourself for forgetting words, but creating a rhythm that respects your life. Sometimes that rhythm is 10 minutes of listening. Sometimes it is repeating one sentence until it feels natural. Sometimes it is doing nothing and trusting that tomorrow you will return. Trust is part of discipline. Say this sentence slowly. I trust myself to return. Again, I trust myself to return. There is something very powerful about that idea, because destruction often whispers, if you stop, you will never come back. Discipline answers quietly, I will come back when I am ready, and you always do. As I speak now, I imagine many different listeners. Some of you are young, some of you are older, some of you are confident in your life, but insecure in English. Some of you are strong in English, but tired in life. And still, you are here, listening. That matters. Sometimes people think discipline looks like intensity, like pushing harder, like never resting. But the discipline that lasts is gentle. It is patient. It forgives quickly. I think of all the times I wanted to quit something meaningful, not because it was impossible, but because it was slow. Progress was quiet. Results were invisible. And yet, when I stayed, when I chose discipline over drama, time did its work. Time always does. This is why I often say that language learning is a form of self-respect. You show up for yourself. You invest in your future voice. You decide that your thoughts deserve expression, and that decision is stronger than any criticism you may face. Let me share one last reflection with you. There will always be noise. There will always be opinions. There will always be moments when it feels easier to react than to remain steady. But every time you choose discipline, every time you slow down, breathe, and respond with intention, you are shaping your character. And character is something no one can take from you, not in language, not in life. So tonight, or today, or whenever you are listening to this, I invite you to do one small disciplined thing. Just one. Listen a little more carefully. Speak a little more slowly. Be a little more patient with yourself. That is enough. You do not need to impress anyone. You do not need to prove anything. You only need to continue. They may want destruction, but you are choosing something quieter, something stronger. You are choosing discipline. And even after those words, even after that closing, I want to leave a little space for silence, not empty silence, but living silence, artiste, the kind that allows meaning to settle. Because sometimes discipline is not what we add, it is what we remove. We remove unnecessary noise. We remove harsh self-talk. We remove the pressure to perform. I learned this slowly. At first, I thought discipline meant filling every hour with effort. Study more, work more, improve faster. But that kind of discipline burns quickly. It creates results, yes, but it also creates fatigue. Real discipline knows when to stop. There were days when I closed my books early. Days when I did not practice speaking. Days when I simply listened to the world around me, the sound of footsteps, the rhythm of breathing, the quiet conversations passing by. And something interesting happened. My English did not disappear. My focus did not collapse. My progress did not vanish. Instead, I returned the next day with clarity. This is something I want you to remember when you feel guilty for resting. Rest is not failure. Rest is regulation. Say this sentence slowly. Rest supports my discipline. Again. Rest supports my discipline. Destruction wants extremes. All or nothing. Now or never. Perfect or useless. Discipline lives in the middle. It is balanced. It is forgiving. It understands seasons. There are seasons when you move forward quickly. There are seasons when you move gently. Both are valid. If you are in a gentle season right now, that does not mean you are weak. It means you are listening. Listening is a skill in language, in life. When you listen deeply, you notice patterns. You hear rhythm. You understand meaning beyond words. That is how fluency truly develops, not through force, but through familiarity. I want you to try something simple with me. Think of one English sentence that feels comfortable for you. Maybe it is something you hear often. Maybe it is something you like to say. Now, imagine saying it slowly, with calm, without rushing to the end. That is discipline in speech, not speed and not perfection, but control. Control of pace, control of breath, control of intention, and intention changes everything. I sometimes imagine discipline as a quiet agreement I make with myself each morning. Not a list of demands, but a promise. I will take care of my attention today. I will not abandon myself when things feel hard. I will choose progress over reaction. These promises are not dramatic. They are private, and that is why they work. No one needs to see your discipline for it to matter, especially in language learning. No one sees you listening late at night. No one hears you repeating a sentence softly. No one notices the courage it takes to speak, even when you are unsure. But you know, and that is enough. If there is one thing I want you to carry from this episode, it is this: you are allowed to grow quietly. Quiet growth is still growth. Slow growth is still growth. Gentle growth is still growth. They may want distraction, impatience, doubt, but you are building something else. You are building steadiness, and steadiness, over time, becomes confidence. Confidence in your voice, confidence in your choices, confidence in your ability to continue. Stay with that. Let your learning be human. Let your discipline be kind. Let your journey be yours. And even now, as this moment stretches a little longer, I want you to notice something subtle. You are still here. You did not rush away. You did not skip ahead. You stayed. That, in itself, is discipline, not forced discipline. Chosen discipline. There is a difference. Forced discipline feels tight in the body. The shoulders rise. The jaw clenches. The mind becomes impatient. Chosen discipline feels different. It feels like alignment, like you are moving in the same direction as yourself. I did not understand this when I was younger. I thought discipline meant ignoring how I felt, pushing through discomfort, silencing doubt with effort. And sometimes that worked, but only for a while. Eventually, the body speaks. Eventually, the mind resists. Eventually, something breaks. That is why the discipline I chose later in life became softer but stronger. I stopped asking, how much can I do today? And started asking, what can I do well today? That question changed everything. Because doing one thing well requires presence, and presence is rare in a world that rewards speed. When you practice English with presence, you hear more. You notice tone. You feel rhythm. Words stop being objects you chase and start becoming tools you hold. This is why I often invite you to slow down, not because you are slow, but because slowness reveals depth. Say this sentence quietly. When I slow down, I notice more. Again. When I slow down, I notice more. Notice how your breath moves when you say it. Notice how the words land. This awareness is not separate from language learning. It is the foundation of it. Destruction thrives on unconsciousness, on autopilot, on reaction without reflection. Discipline interrupts that pattern. It says, wait. It says, look again. It says, choose carefully. And sometimes discipline says nothing at all. It simply stays. There were moments when staying was the hardest choice I could make. Staying with a project when motivation disappeared. Staying with a routine when results were invisible. Staying with myself when doubt was loud. But each time I stayed, something inside me strengthened. Not ego, not pride, stability. And stability changes how you speak. You stop apologizing for your accent. You stop rushing to finish sentences you are tata. You stop fearing silence. Silence becomes a companion, not an enemy. In conversation, silence gives your words weight. In learning, silence gives your mind space. In life, silence gives your heart rest. This is why discipline is not always active. Sometimes it is receptive. It listens. It allows. I want you to remember this the next time you feel frustrated with your English. Frustration often means you care. And caring, guided gently, becomes discipline. So guide yourself gently. Speak as you are, not as you think you should be. Learn as you can, not as others expect. Grow at your pace, not at someone else's speed. This is not resistance. This is wisdom. And wisdom does not shout. It whispers. It whispers, continue. It whispers, you are on your way. It whispers, this is enough for today. Listen to that voice. It is quieter than doubt, but it is truer. You are not here to be destroyed by pressure. You are here to be shaped by consistency, and consistency, practiced with care, becomes a kind of peace. Stay with that peace. Carry it into your next sentence. Carry it into your next day. And now, as we reach the true end of this journey together, I want to slow everything down one last time, not to add anything new, but to let what already exists settle into you. Think of everything we have shared not as information, but as experience, a rhythm, a tone, a way of being with language. Discipline, in its deepest form, is not something you force into your life. It is something you return to, again and again, gently, honestly. You will have days when you feel focused. You will have days when you feel scattered. Both belong to the same path. What matters is not perfection, but continuity. Continuity is how trust is built. Trust in your voice. Trust in your learning. Trust in yourself. And that trust changes the way you walk through the world. You stop rushing to be understood. You stop shrinking your thoughts. You stop abandoning yourself in moments of difficulty. Instead, you stay. You stay with the sentence, even if it feels unfinished. You stay with the feeling, even if it feels uncomfortable. You stay with the process, even when progress is quiet. That is discipline, not loud, not dramatic, but deeply resilient. I want you to remember this when you close this episode. When the sound fades and your environment returns, carry this calm with you. Let it influence how you speak next, how you listen next, how you respond next. You do not need to change everything. You only need to continue consciously. They may want distraction. They may want impatience. They may want you to doubt yourself. But you are choosing something else. You are choosing steadiness. You are choosing awareness. You are choosing discipline. And that choice, made quietly, will shape your future more than any reaction ever could. Thank you for giving me your time. Thank you for giving yourself your attention. This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas. Keep speaking, keep growing, and keep trusting yourself.